Hello, everyone. This is Ana Pacheco, Santa Fe 101. Today, I have Dan Coleman from Berkshire Hathaway, and he is going to talk to us about Chavez County and, in particular, the city of Roswell. Dan, do I have your permission to record this interview?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, perfect. Well, good. So, again, thank you for agreeing to be on the program today. And I know you're in a leadership role there. Can you tell me a little bit about who you kind of oversee and what Berkshire Hathaway is doing in southern New Mexico?
Sure, absolutely. So I am the corporate sales manager for Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Enchanted Lands Realtors. So that means that I oversee our sales teams in all five offices. We have one in Roswell, one in Artesia, one in Carlsbad, one in Hobbs, and one over in Clovis.
Okay,
And
and so
so
you're in Chavez County. So, what other counties overlap in all those different offices?
Sure. So Hobbs is Lee County. Clovis is over. Oh gosh, I want to say it's Roosevelt County, and then or is it Curry County? Well, we have Clovis and Portales is one office. I believe that is both Curry and Roosevelt, if I'm not mistaken. But Hobbs is definitely Lee County, and then Carlsbad and Artesia are both in Eddy County, and then Roswell, of course, is Chavez County.
Okay, and so here I'm based here in Santa Fe, so I know that right now real estate is really just doing so well, and I'm trying to get a perspective of how it's doing in the other counties
Sure.
of New Mexico. So tell me a little bit about like right now, and then just maybe some historic perspective on living and purchasing a home in Roswell.
Sure, absolutely. So right now, the market is really good. It's amazing because through COVID, everyone expected it to tank and to crash and to go bad, but it has not at all. We've remained very busy. In fact, in the five offices that we have had our biggest months since we've had the company in each of our offices this year in 2020. Um, and the property values in Roswell have gone up quite a bit. You know, used to a person had to be in a home at least 2 years to break even, at least 3 years to make any money. But because of COVID, a lot of people have been forced to move at the 1 year mark. And they've actually been able to walk away with a little bit of profit. The market has appreciated that much to where people are not losing their shirts if they have to leave early. The market
When you
has
say
been
they
very
have to leave
stable.
early, is it because they can't afford the mortgages right now, or what is that? What are you talking about?
A lot of people here in southeast New Mexico are dependent on oil field. You know, that's their work, and
Mhm.
so a lot of oil field people have been cut because there's not as much travel. Therefore, there's not as much petroleum being utilized. So therefore, there's not as much to be processed at the moment, and so some people have had to leave to go find work elsewhere.
But I guess the good news is that they actually made a little money, or they didn't lose any money because the market's doing so well. So the people that are moving to Roswell now, if they're not dependent on oil and gas, why are they moving to Roswell?
So we are fortunate, you know, down in Hobbs and Artesia and Carlsbad, the majority of their market really and truly is oil. In Roswell, we get some oil, but we have a lot of tourism, which clearly is not that busy right now.
Right.
But luckily, we still have other stuff. We've got Leprino Foods, which is the world's largest mozzarella manufacturer. And the plant here in Roswell is I think it's about 25 years old now. It goes back and forth. Leprino Foods has about I think about a dozen different plants. The one in Roswell is sometimes the largest and sometimes the second largest because Leprino is always adding and expanding, and so we kind of go between first and second largest plant, depending on where the expansion is happening. But that place employs 500 people or so, and so they bring in managers and team leads and stuff that stay a while. Um, we also do have people that come here for um, different jobs at the airbase, the old airbase, which has a lot of aviation type work. So there's a plane restoration company, a plane scrap metal company, a plane painting company. So there's lots of work out there that brings people in long term.
Well, I
And
think you
there's
also have, you have the world's largest parking lot for jumbo jets.
yes,
I,
we do.
I think it's such a trip when I've been down in your area before, and you suddenly there's like nothing. You're driving along, and then suddenly you see this huge area, and you see Singapore Air and Lufthansa and all these major jumbo jets. And I read an article recently about, because of the downturn in travel, because of COVID right now, again, people that this is where airlines park in your area. They
Mhm.
park the planes because we are such an arid climate. We get, it's if there's long-term parking there for the planes, they're going to do better
Absolutely.
in our kind of weather.
That's right. We don't have the humidity. They don't have to worry about the rust and the mildew. The airport does lease space, by the day, and there are hundreds of planes out there parked right now. Some of the airplane companies are taking advantage of their units being out of service and kind of doing some maintenance and some upgrades on them, and others are just simply storing them. But
And
we
so in Roswell, you have the mechanics there. So they're, whether, even if it was an airline, say from Singapore or, the Saudi Arabia, the mechanics, local mechanics, what are the ones who would be working on these things? They contract out to people to companies in Roswell. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct. We have several different aviation companies here in town. The community college here does have a program specifically for training people for airplane maintenance and such. And so the workforce for that is pretty steady.
Oh, wow. And then you also have a military institute in Roswell. That's got to bring in jobs.
Definitely. The Military Institute runs, um, I don't know the exact number, but average about 1,200 students. And so, there's teachers and custodians and admin and nurses and the whole nine yards. That's a 100 and some year old institution. People from all over the world come here to go to school there. It's got a high school and then a junior college.
Oh, so it's called the New Mexico Military Institute. That's correct, right?
Yes,
So is
ma'am.
it the only one in the country? Because I wasn't sure if it was just for New Mexico residents. So it actually is national and international.
It is. Yeah, it sure is. And it's not the only one in the country. There are others, but I think there's only about a handful in the country. Several previous presidents have actually gone through the institute here at one point or another, even.
Okay. And then before we go on to talk about real estate, 'cause it's so fascinating. I mean, I'm learning as we're going along here, but since people might be watching this, let's tell people why Roswell is so famous.
Oh yes. So the thing we're most famous for, of course, is the 1947 UFO crash. We're famous for aliens. That's our big tourism draw is aliens. People literally come from all over the world to come, see the crash site and see the museum and go to all the little souvenir shops and just the whole town is centered around aliens.
And so that, isn't there typically in the summer, there's some kind of a big festival and people come dressed like Martians from all over?
Yes, exactly. So typically it's around July 4th, and because the crash was in June, if I remember correctly. Don't remember the date. Doesn't really matter.
That's
So
okay.
every year around the 4th of July, we have the Alien Festival, and it's a big deal. Speakers come from all over the world to come and talk about, improve, and present. And we have an alien parade, alien costume contest, vendors, festivals. I mean, it's a big deal.
And then how far was the crash site from the city of Roswell?
It's north of town, about give or take 15 miles, probably.
And what is there when if you were to drive out there, what do you see?
So it's private land. It's a private ranch, and so what you would see is no trespassing signs. But during the festival, there will be little guided tours, which open it up to go see the site. It's dirt and rocks.
That's all it is. There's nothing.
Yeah.
But it honestly has been verified that there was, as far as we know, there really was some kind of a UFO crash there.
Right. Yeah. There was a big cover up, of course, at the time. Government said that it was a weather balloon that had crashed down, which still, I mean, nobody disputes that something crashed there. But there are lots of people that were working at the airbase because back then the airbase was still open. Walker Air Force Base was a functioning base. And there's lots of people that worked there that absolutely swear on everything that it was aliens and that they saw them being transported in and moved out and what have you. And they say that they saw not a weather balloon but an actual UFO vehicle. So I people ask all the time, do you believe that it happened? And I always say, well, I don't know because of course I wasn't around then, but um, whether it happened or not, it definitely put our little town on the map, and so you have to embrace it. And the other thing I always say is, it would be a little selfish of us to think that we're the only beings in this entire wide universe, right?
Exactly. So when you get prospective buyers for homes, I'm sure they want to go through the whole Martian or the UFO thing with you. Do you ever get people that are like kind of skeptical in terms that they think that, well, maybe there's like Martians among the, people living for maybe there's aliens living in Roswell, acting like humans. Do you ever get stuff
Right.
like that?
No, I've been doing this for over 15 years, and of course, people always ask about it. And they're when I'm doing little tours and driving them around, I point out the UFO museum and some of the bigger shops, and I show them, different things. And I pass by the community little theater, and I pass by the movie theater, and I pass by the New Mexico Military Institute, and pass by parks and golf courses, and kind of show them and give them a whole general, what does Roswell have to offer? And so through that, there's always conversation. But I've had people ask me if I've seen an alien, but I've never had anyone ask me if I think that there's, Martians or aliens disguised walking among us. But
Well, that's an interesting concept, though. Think about it. I'm sure they made a
absolutely.
movie of it or something. There's actually, if I'm not mistaken, on some network, it's called Roswell. There's a whole movie. It's filmed south of Santa Fe. It's called those
Right.
movie studios, but they actually have a whole show called Roswell.
Yep, there certainly is. It's interesting because on the original, I think there's a second Roswell television show now. On the original one, there was a place called the Crash Site Cafe, which doesn't exist. But after that show came out, somebody opened a place in town called the Crash Site Cafe. It has since closed and gone on. But yeah, there is a show about Roswell.
There you go. So let's talk about real estate now. So what is the median cost of a home right now in Roswell?
Sure. So the median cost is about $165,000.
And what would
Um,
that get you? $165,000. What would you be purchasing?
sure, a three-bedroom house, two bath, garage, probably 15 to 1700 square feet. That's about
Would
average.
that be a new home, or would that be would it be a home that's been on the market before?
It would be an existing home. New home builds are averaging about $135 a square foot. So it's fairly hard to find a new home. The average new home, brand new build, three bed or four bed, two bath, 1,800 square feet, two car garage. That's about $230,000.
Okay. And are there new developments going in Roswell?
There are there are three different projects right now underway by developers for opening up a couple of new subdivisions because for the most part all of the existing land, all the existing lots and all the existing subdivisions, all the lots are already purchased, and so the builders are already working on those. The last couple of subdivisions that have been active are filled up. There is one subdivision that was really big in the 80s, and then for years nothing's really happened. And so now the last, I think, 40 lots there are being developed on. And so there's a couple of three new subdivisions that developers are working on. And so that's going to be another, oh, I would say each of those subdivisions is probably about 100 lots. So there's roughly 300 new lots being worked on, being developed for builders. And some of the existing builders in town will be utilizing those lots, and there are a couple of new builders that are looking to come to town because we've got a really hot market, and we've got less than 100 houses on the market in the entire town. And
Why is
so
it so hot right now? Why right now? Is it just the COVID pandemic? What is driving people to your city right now?
sure, we started before COVID. It has maintained through COVID, but part of it pre-COVID is oil field workers because Hobbs has filled up, and then those people filter to Carlsbad, which has filled up. They filter to Artesia, which is filled up. So we're the next place. So part of it's oil field, but right now that's not quite as busy as normal. But um, a lot of people come here because of the climate and because of the cost of living. We get a lot of transplants from California looking for a place where their dollar can stretch a little further. And it stretches a lot further here than it does in California.
Exactly. And so like these brand new developments that are coming, these subdivisions that are coming
Mhm.
out now, so the average for a brand new home, say 3 or 4 bedroom, is about 230,000.
Yes, starting there, and it can go up by 100,000, depending on the size and the amenities. Maybe you want 5 bedrooms, maybe you want 3 bathrooms, maybe you want 3,000 square feet, and so then it's going to cost more, obviously. But yeah, average for a new build, 3 or 4 bedroom, 2 car garage is about 230.
Okay. And then are these on basic like subdivision lots, or do you get any kind of acreage with the property?
Those are typically subdivision lots. Average of say a 10 to 15,000 square foot lot.
Okay. And then in terms of high-end luxury housing, we have plenty of that here in Santa Fe. Do you have that
Sure.
in Roswell?
We do. The majority of the high-end luxury stuff is usually custom builds, um, unless there's resale. And there is, people, a lot of people that have those fancy custom luxury homes are now looking to downsize. They don't need 4 or 5,000 square feet. They need, 2,500. And so there are some, there's listings that are higher end from 400,000 up to 1 million.
Wow.
You know.
And do those $1 million properties, do they have like, are they ranches? Do you have ranches and areas for sale outside of the city limits that people might be, they want to be, out in the country, but close enough to a town and a city where
Absolutely.
they have the available amenities.
Yes, we've got lots of development outside city limits, on lots averaging anywhere from 2 to 10 acres typically. There are of course bigger places, but the majority of your kind of high-end development like that is usually 2 to 5 acres or 2 to 10 acres, and they do exist. There's
Are
there's
they
a
called
there's
ranchettes or something like that?
usually they're just not really labeled specific. People just say, "Hey, I want a house with a little acreage," and then we just begin a search and find it. So,
And what
uh,
what would something like that cost if somebody was listening to this, watching this video right now, and
sure,
they think, well, I Roswell sounds kind of cool, but I'd like to be away from the crowd. What would
sure.
something like that cost?
So if you find one that's existing, the starting point's usually probably about 250 for an existing on a couple of acres, and then they could go up to the most expensive one I can think of right now is just under 1 million. There's a couple right around that 5 and 600,000 price point.
That sounds very affordable compared to Santa Fe. And would those
Yes, I love Santa Fe. I go to Santa Fe twice a year for different realtors conventions, state conventions, and I
uh
absolutely love it. And I love to drive around and see things. But it amazes me the difference in price points. That 200-mile trip makes.
Yeah, well, we're internationally known right now. So right now, the median
Absolutely,
cost in Santa Fe, I believe, is about 535,000. That's just a starting point. So it's definitely different, and we definitely, in terms of the state of New Mexico, Santa Fe is the most expensive city. But there's a few behind us. Los Alamos is right
sure.
behind us. Albuquerque's getting a little more expensive, and Las Cruces, so the bigger cities. So that's part of the reason for this new website, santafe101.com, is to educate people that New Mexico is an incredibly beautiful state, and there are other counties where, like you said, your dollar will go further. So a lot of these Californians that you're getting are people that are moving from other areas. Are they seeking local work, or are they working remotely?
Um, a little bit of both, honestly. Some of them are coming here and still working remotely for whatever company it is that they work for in California. I've seen quite a bit of that. Some of them come here and maybe they'll go to work in the medical field. We have a lot of medical field here and a lot of turnover in the medical field. So I've seen lots of doctors and practitioners come here from California and go to work at either the hospital or well, one of the hospitals, we have two, or the different doctors' offices and stuff. And I've also seen an amazing number of people in recent years moving here from California to simply retire and relax.
And relax, right? Okay. And if you're saying it's 200 miles to Santa Fe, takes what, 3 hours?
Roughly. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So are you closer to El Paso then, or what will you be? What's the biggest city?
Honestly, so truthfully speaking, to the north of us, you have Albuquerque and Santa Fe, about 200 miles each. To the west, you have Las Cruces, about 200 miles. To the east, you have Lubbock, about 200 miles. And to the south, you have El Paso, about 200 miles. And so roughly we're in the middle of, 200 miles from everywhere.
Okay, so you're about a 3-hour drive from,
Yes, ma'am.
but they're big enough. It's doable.
Oh, absolutely. You can go over and back in the same day.
There you go. What about apartments? Are there rentals available in Roswell? Because here in Santa Fe, because we're such a tourist town, all the rentals, short-term rentals, long-term rentals are almost non-existent. How are rentals in the Roswell area?
The rental market is very tight. My office manages, I think, about 500 long-term rentals, and I think today, when I looked at the list, I think there's 4 available. The rental market is very tight. There are a lot of apartment buildings in town, but they're pretty much all at max capacity. Now, there's a development that built phase 1 of their apartment complex within, I guess, 2 years ago. And they recently announced that they're about to break ground on phase 2 because phase 1 is completely filled up, and they have a waiting list long enough that they consider it worthwhile to go ahead and begin phase 2. And then we have another developer that's coming to town that's looking to build some apartments and some duplexes. So the rental market right now is very strong. And just like we're short on houses to buy, we're short on places to rent. So developers are seeing the need and they're spending the money to start new projects and build more apartments and multifamily type units.
Well, it sounds like, you have an advantage over Santa Fe in the sense that you have plenty of land or developers are able to come in. Here in Santa Fe, we're limited. I mean, south of town, there's some growth, but for the most part, we're kind of, we're kind of boxed in. We don't have too many places to grow. Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I say we've got a lot of land. And our biggest challenge has been, having the developers to do something with it. And we've got some people that have deep pockets and big dreams. And so something's coming together.
And do you have the aquifers? Do you have the water to support this growth?
We do. We're very fortunate here. We have enough artesian water and that we don't even have water restrictions. Over in Alamogordo, which is 120 miles away from here, they have to water every other day or 3 days a week or whatever it is. Roswell has a lot of water, and so we're very fortunate in that respect.
Excellent. Well, good. Well, we're at the end of, see how fast these interviews go. Is there something that you want to part with something, if somebody's watching this, they should, be aware of when it comes to looking at real estate in Roswell or in Chaves County?
Sure. The thing that I always tell my people is, if you see something that you like, jump on it, because there's 10 other people who like it too. And what we're seeing a lot in the market these days is, if you snooze, you lose. It'll be gone in a minute.
I like that. I like if you snooze, you lose. Listen, I want to thank you so much, and all the best to you.
You too. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you.